The moment Declan Hayes stepped into the penthouse, the scent hit him first: fresh lilies, crisp and elegant, arranged in a crystal vase on the marble dining table. Not the cheap grocery store bouquets he occasionally tossed Marin's way when guilt forced his hand. No. These were luxury lilies, the kind ordered from high-end Manhattan florists, wrapped in white silk ribbon, sitting like a quiet accusation in the center of their home. He froze. His jacket still smelled of Briar's perfume, a sugary, artificial sweetness clinging to his clothes after the night he swore was just a business dinner. But lilies, these lilies didn't belong to him, and men like Declan hated anything they couldn't control. "Where did these come from?" he demanded, dropping his keys so hard the metal clattered across the floor. Across the room, Marin Doyle looked up from her old MacBook Air, her expression calm in that way that only comes after months of trying to keep a sinking marriage afloat. Her sweater sleeves were pushed up, revealing faint paint stains from a project she'd been working on late into the night. "A client sent them," she said softly. "A congratulations gift." Declan's jaw tightened. "What client?" "Julian Crest." The name landed like a stone thrown into still water. Declan had spent years trying to get a meeting with Julian, the one CEO in New York who never took his calls. But Julian had sent Marin flowers? To their home? He stepped closer, his voice low and sharp. "Why would he send you something like this?" Marin blinked, stunned at the accusation. "Because he liked my design proposal. Because he respects my work." Respect. A word Declan despised unless it was directed at him. His eyes darkened. "You expect me to believe that?" Before Marin could answer, the elevator dinged. Footsteps. A woman's voice. Marin turned toward the sound confused, unsuspecting, just as the doors slid open to reveal someone she never expected to see on her doorstep at 7 a.m. Declan's mistress, standing there, smirking, as if she belonged. And in that instant, Marin realized her life was about to split cleanly into before and after. And the secret that Mistress carried would shatter everything. Marin Doyle had spent years learning how to stay quiet in her own home. Not because she lacked a voice, but because Declan had slowly trained her to believe her words carried no weight. So when Briar Lowell, Declan's mistress, stepped out of the elevator like she belonged in the penthouse, Marin didn't scream, didn't lash out, didn't make a scene. She simply stared. And that silence frightened Briar more than any outburst could have. "Oh," Briar said, lifting a manicured hand to her lips in fake surprise. "Did I interrupt something?" Marin felt something twist inside her chest. Anger, humiliation, the sting of betrayal, but she kept her voice even. "What are you doing here?" Declan stiffened. He hadn't expected this. Marin could see the panic behind his eyes, a child caught with both hands in the jar. Briar, on the other hand, thrived in the chaos she created. Her gaze flicked to the bouquet. Lovely flowers. Didn't figure Declan for the romantic type. Marin swallowed. He didn't send them. "Oh?" Briar tilted her head, delight spreading across her face. "Someone else did?" How bold. Marin wanted to disappear. She wanted to scream. Instead, she wrapped her arms around herself, steadying her breath the way she used to whenever life became too heavy. She'd spent her 20s working double shifts, taking on every freelance lighting project she could find, clawing her way out of debt, one invoice at a time. She built a life with Declan from scratch, supported him before the fancy suits, before the Park Avenue office, before the arrogance, and yet here she stood at 31, treated like a stranger in her own home. Declan ran a hand through his hair. "Briar, you shouldn't be here." "Why not?" she said sweetly. "You weren't complaining last night." Marin's pulse trembled, but she held herself together. She always had. Growing up with no father and a mother who worked 3 jobs, Marin learned early that survival sometimes meant swallowing the bitterness and moving forward. She had always believed Declan was different, someone who valued loyalty, someone who saw her. Now she saw the truth. Declan never wanted a partner. He wanted property. And Briar? She wanted ownership of whatever Declan touched, including the penthouse, the career, the life Marin had helped him build. Briar stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming, her smile mocking. "Declan didn't tell you what happened last night, did he?" Marin's heart paused. Declan's face paled. And Briar whispered a sentence that didn't just break the room, it detonated it. "Because he wasn't just with me, he made plans about you." It was Apata. The penthouse that towered above Central Park West had once been Marin's sanctuary. She remembered the day they moved in, how she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the Manhattan skyline, as if she had finally reached a place where life couldn't hurt her anymore. Back then, the city lights felt warm, full of promise. Now they felt cold, like witnesses to a betrayal unfolding in slow motion. Declan stalked across the living room, every step echoing through the space. The marble floors gleamed beneath the morning sun, reflecting his agitation, his guilt, his unraveling facade. The place looked immaculate: designer furniture, curated art pieces, a kitchen outfitted with Italian appliances, but beneath the surface, rot had slowly settled in. And Marin? She felt like an outsider wandering through the ruins of the life she'd built. Briar sauntered in like she owned it. Her heels clicked loudly, disrespectfully, bouncing off the high ceilings as she moved toward the panoramic windows. "Amazing view," she said, smirking over her shoulder. "I can see why you held on to this place." Held on to, as if Marin was squatting in a life that didn't belong to her. Marin clenched her jaw and looked away. She didn't have the luxury of breaking down. Not here, not now. The city stretched out below them, the shimmering glass towers along Fifth Avenue, the moving dots of yellow cabs, the distant hum of morning traffic. But instead of peace, it filled Marin with dread. Something was changing. Something was closing in. Declan's voice cracked the silence. "This isn't the time, Briar." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You told me to come." Marin's head snapped up. What?" Declan avoided her eyes. That was all the answer she needed. Briar drifted toward the dining table, brushing her fingers across the lilies Julian had sent. "These are expensive," she said. "Who sends a married woman flowers like this?" "Someone who appreciates her work," Marin replied, but her voice was quieter than she intended. "Or someone who wants her." Briar smirked. Declan's jaw twitched. He hated hearing that, hated the idea of another man valuing Marin. Hated that Julian Crest, a man far above him in every way, knew Marin existed. A tremor of panic passed through Declan's expression, brief but unmistakable. And then, as if timed by fate, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and went pale. Marin saw it. One name. A name that did not belong to Briar or anyone she recognized. A name Declan never wanted her to see. And when he tried to hide the phone, Marin knew this morning held more secrets than just infidelity. Declan's phone buzzed again, vibrating sharply against the glass counter. He flipped it face down, but not fast enough. Marin caught a glimpse. A woman's name. Not Briar, not anyone from his office. Someone new. Someone he clearly didn't want her to know about. Her stomach tightened. "Who's that?" she asked quietly. "No one," Declan said too quickly. "Work." Briar laughed under her breath. "Oh, sweetheart, at least lie better." Declan shot her a warning glare, but the damage was done. Marin moved toward the kitchen island, her steps slow, steady, controlled. She reached for the abandoned phone, but Declan snatched it away like it was a live explosive. "Don't touch my things," he snapped. The words stung more than they should have. This was her home too, her life too, the place she had held together through late nights and endless paychecks stretched thin. And yet, here he was, guarding his phone as if the truth on it might burn him alive. "Why can't I see it?" Marin whispered. Declan didn't answer. But his silence was an answer. She turned away, her eyes burning, her pulse pounding in her ears. She needed proof. She needed something real, something undeniable. And in that moment, the universe handed it to her. On the back of Declan's crisp white shirt collar, partly hidden by his jacket, she spotted a faint smear of lipstick. Not Briar's shade. This was deeper, darker, a color Briar never wore. Her voice trembled, but she didn't falter. "Declan, what's on your collar?" He froze. Briar's brows shot up in amusement. "Wow, you've been busy." Marin stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the stain. "Who is she?" "It's nothing," Declan insisted. "You said that about Briar." A sharp silence fell over the penthouse. Outside the windows, Manhattan woke up, sirens in the distance, the rumble of traffic, the pulse of a city that didn't care about broken hearts or shattered promises. Inside, the walls felt too small, too tight. Declan straightened, trying to reclaim control. "Marin, you're overreacting." "End of vista." But she wasn't. She had been underreacting for years. She had swallowed doubts, ignored red flags, convinced herself that love could survive disrespect. But this was too much. Maren backed away, her breath unsteady. She scanned the room, the lilies from Julian, the lipstick on Declan's collar, the phone buzzing with messages from another woman, Briar still smirking. Everything connected into one brutal truth. Declan hadn't slipped, he hadn't made a mistake. He had a pattern. A pattern that started long before Briar and didn't end with her. And then, the front door intercom buzzed loudly. A delivery. For Maren. And what was inside that box would rip the last thread holding her marriage together. The elevator chimed again, slicing through the tension like a blade. Maren hurried toward the foyer, grateful, desperate for any distraction from the chaos unfolding behind her. A delivery man stood at the door holding a sleek black box tied with a platinum ribbon. Too elegant, too intentional. "Delivery for Maren Doyle," he said. She hesitated, glancing back toward Declan and Briar, who watched like hawks circling a wounded animal. Maren signed anyway. As soon as she touched the box, she felt dread bloom in her chest. Luxury packaging. Weighty, personal. Not from Julian, she hoped. Declan crossed his arms. "Another present? Seems you're very busy these days." His jealousy cut through the room with a toxic sharpness. Briar leaned into him, whispering something Maren couldn't hear, but the smirk on her lips said enough. Maren carried the box to the dining table. Her hands shook as she pulled the ribbon loose. The lid lifted smoothly, too smoothly, and inside lay a stack of glossy photo prints. She froze. The first photo showed her at a client meeting 2 weeks ago, walking down Fifth Avenue, laughing while speaking with a hotel manager. Completely innocent moments, but taken from angles that looked intimate, invasive, stalker-like. Another photo. And another. Declan snatched the top print. His face darkened. "Who took these?" I don't know," Maren whispered. Briar plucked one from the pile, raising her brows dramatically. "Wow, you've been busy, haven't you?" "They're from work," Maren insisted, heat flooding her cheeks. "That's the hotel project I told you about." Declan slammed the photo on the table. "Do you expect me to believe that? Someone sends you flowers? Someone sends you photos? What am I supposed to think?" "That someone is watching me," Maren said, choking on the truth. But Declan only heard what he wanted. He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Is this Julian? Is that who you've been running around with?" Maren flinched. "Declan, stop. Look at the timestamps. These were taken in daylight while you were at work?" Briar cut in sweetly. "Or do you mean while he thought you were at home being a loyal wife?" Declan's silence was worse than shouting, worse than accusations. His eyes had already decided she was guilty. "Maren," he said quietly, "I never thought you were the type. The type. A woman who would betray him. A woman like him." Her throat burned. "These photos are meant to make you doubt me, don't you see that?" But he didn't. Declan stepped back like she disgusted him. And then her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. A single sentence that made her blood run cold. "If your husband won't listen, maybe you should ask him where he really was last Thursday." Maren stared at the message glowing on her phone screen, the words sharp enough to cut straight through her chest. Ask him where he really was last Thursday. Her mind raced. Last Thursday. Declan had claimed he had a late board meeting. He hadn't come home until nearly 2 a.m., smelling faintly of whiskey and someone else's perfume. She had asked if everything was okay. He kissed her forehead, said, "Just work, Maren. Go to sleep." But the message felt like a hand tearing away the curtain she'd been hiding behind. She turned toward Declan, her voice trembling. "Where were you last Thursday?" He stiffened. "Don't start." "Where?" she pressed, louder this time. Declan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Briar smiled like a cat enjoying the unraveling of prey. "Oh, Declan, you didn't tell her about that night?" Maren's heart spiraled. "What night?" Briar leaned casually against the island countertop. "The night he said he wished he'd never married you." The room tilted. Declan didn't deny it. Not even with a shake of his head. Maren felt something inside her tear open quietly, painfully, like fabric splitting under too much strain. She gripped the edge of the dining chair to steady herself. The penthouse suddenly felt foreign, every piece of furniture reminding her of the sacrifices she had made, the freelance jobs she took to help pay for this place, The nights she stayed up late polishing Declan's presentations. The holidays she skipped visiting her mother because Declan insisted his work schedule came first. Her knees weakened. She pressed a hand to her stomach to keep from collapsing. "I gave you everything," she whispered. Declan's expression hardened. "Don't make this dramatic." "Dramatic?" Maren laughed, a broken, shaking sound. "You cheated. You lied. You brought your mistress into our home. And you've been getting flowers and mystery deliveries," he shot back. "Maybe you're not so innocent either." The accusation shattered something fragile inside her. Tears pushed to the surface, but she fought them back. "Not yet. Not in front of Briar." She took a step toward him, her voice cracking. "I'm your wife." End quote. "And maybe that was the wrong choice," he said coldly. Her breath hitched. Suddenly the walls felt too close, the air too thin. She grabbed her coat, stumbling toward the door. She didn't care where she was going, she just needed to get away before the dam inside her burst. "Maren," Declan barked. But she kept walking, hand shaking as she pressed the elevator button. As the doors slid closed, her vision blurred, breath shaking, heart breaking. And just before the elevator dropped, her phone buzzed again. A second message. "You deserve to know the truth. Meet me." The cold morning air slapped Maren's cheeks as she stumbled out of the building, the city noise swallowing her uneven breaths. She wrapped her coat tighter around her trembling body, trying to hold herself together long enough to read the second message. "Meet me?" No name, no location. Just those two words. Her phone buzzed again. This time, an address popped up, an upscale cafe on Madison Avenue, a place Declan always avoided, claiming it was pretentious and overpriced. That alone told Maren the message wasn't from him. Her legs felt like they were made of glass, ready to shatter with every step, but she forced herself into a cab. By the time she walked into the cafe, her heartbeat was pounding in her ears. She scanned the room, unsure who she was looking for. Then she saw him. A man in a charcoal suit sat near the window, Manhattan's skyline glowing behind him. Dark hair, sharp features, posture, elegant but restrained. He was flipping through documents, a Mont Blanc pen resting between his fingers. He looked like he belonged on the cover of a business magazine. He lifted his eyes. Julian Crest. The name that had sent Declan into a spiral. The man who sent her lilies. He stood slowly, the kind of movement that commanded attention without asking for it. Maren Doyle. Her throat tightened. "Yes. Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I'm sorry to contact you this way, but it was necessary." She hesitated, but exhaustion pushed her into the seat. "Why did you send me those messages? And the flowers?" Julian studied her closely, not with judgment, but with a strange, quiet concern. "Because I believe you're in danger." Her breath caught. "From who?" He hit. "Declan Hayes has been reaching out to my company aggressively, offering partnerships, deals, access." His eyes narrowed. "But that's not why I called you here." Maren felt her pulse spike. Julian slid a folder across the table. "I think he's been using your name." Maren blinked. "My name? Your credit, your signature, your professional portfolio." Julian's voice lowered. "He submitted your designs to a rival firm and attempted to claim partial ownership of your work. Whenever 10 struck 7, her stomach dropped. No, Declan wouldn't, but he would. He had. Julian leaned in slightly. "I'm telling you this because your work is good, exceptional, actually, and it deserves protection." Maren's hands shook as she flipped through the documents, her sketches, her concepts, even her notes, all copied, watermarked with someone else's logo. He didn't just cheat on her. He stole from her. Julian watched her closely. "You can still take everything back, Maren, but you need to decide who you're protecting, him or yourself." Her breath broke, and then Julian said, the sentence that shifted her entire world. "Your husband isn't just betraying you emotionally. He's building his future on your name." For a long moment, Maren couldn't speak. The folder lay open on the table, her own handwriting staring back at her like a stranger. Notes she'd scribbled at midnight. Drafts she'd thrown together in taxis between client meetings. Weeks of unpaid work, months of sweat and hope. All of it stolen, repackaged, and quietly funneled into someone else's pocket. Into Declan's pocket. Her throat tightened with a pressure that felt too big for one body to hold. Why? Why would he do this? She whispered. Julian's expression softened. Because your talent is valuable, and some men only realize that after they've exploited it. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't bother wiping it away. He let the silence linger, giving her space to breathe, to absorb, to break. Then he spoke, calm and steady. Marin, what he's doing is illegal. Identity misuse, intellectual property theft. It's serious. She swallowed hard. I don't know what to do. You don't need to know today. Julian slid a business card toward her. But when you're ready, call this attorney. She's discreet, sharp, and used to handling cases like this. Marin stared at the card. The weight of it felt heavier than the entire folder. Julian leaned back in his chair, regarding her with an unexpected gentleness. You look like someone who hasn't been allowed to take up space in a long time. That sentence hit deeper than any accusation. Marin looked away, embarrassed by how easily he saw through her. How effortlessly he read what Declan had taken years to beat into her, her confidence, her voice, her worth. I'm not strong like people think, she murmured. Julian shook his head. Strength isn't loud, Marin. Sometimes it's surviving things no one knows about. Her breath trembled. She didn't argue. Julian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, exhaled quietly, then stood. I have a meeting. But I wanted you to hear the truth before Declan twisted it. He grabbed his coat and paused beside her. Take the day. Rest. Then decide what comes next. Your work deserves better. You deserve better. I have no one. She watched him step out into the Manhattan morning, disappearing into the flow of people moving with purpose and confidence, qualities she once had but somehow lost along the way. She gathered the documents, tucking them carefully into her bag. Outside the cafe window, the city glittered with possibility, indifferent to heartbreak, yet overflowing with second chances. For the first time in months, Marin inhaled deeply. Her marriage was collapsing. Her trust was shattered. But something else, small, fragile, determined, stirred inside her chest. And as she stepped onto Madison Avenue, her phone buzzed again. Declan, come home, now. Marin didn't go home. Instead, she walked no direction, no destination, just the raw instinct to keep moving so the weight in her chest wouldn't crush her. The late afternoon wind rolled through Manhattan, carrying the chill of approaching evening. Streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the sidewalks. Her phone buzzed again. Declan, come home. We need to talk. Another message. Declan, if you don't come back, don't expect me to fix this. Fix this. As if she were the problem. As if his lies, his mistress, his theft of her work were minor inconveniences for him to fix when he felt like it. She silenced her phone and shoved it deep into her coat pocket. She wandered through Central Park, past runners with headphones, tourists with cameras, families pushing strollers. The world kept moving. Her world had stopped. She found a bench near the lake, where skyscrapers reflected across the water like broken glass. Her breath fogged in the cooling air. All the moments she had ignored the nights, Declan came home late, the dismissive words, the constant undermining flooded her. How many times had she convinced herself he was just stressed, that she just needed to be more patient, more supportive? A memory surfaced 3 years ago, when she landed her first lighting design contract. She'd come home beaming, ready to celebrate. Declan poured himself a drink and said, "Let's not get carried away. It's small scale." She hadn't realized then how deliberately he dimmed her light. She pressed her palms into her eyes, trying to hold back tears. She felt foolish, empty, betrayed, and painfully alone. A figure jogged past her, then slowed, turning back. "You okay?" A stranger, just a passerby. She shook her head quickly, embarrassed. "I'm fine." He nodded gently and kept running. The simple kindness almost undid her. Her phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't Declan. A new number. "Julian, if you're somewhere safe, stay there." He just called my office. Marin's stomach flipped. Declan had contacted Julian. Why? To threaten him? To intimidate him? Or because he feared Marin learning the truth? Her fingers trembled as she typed back. "What did he say?" Julian replied instantly. "Julian, he told me to stay out of his marriage." That's usually what people say when they have something to hide. A gust of wind swept across the lake, scattering dried leaves around her feet. She stood slowly, her spine straightening with a strength she didn't know she still possessed. She wasn't going back yet. Maybe not ever. Her heart ached. Her life was crumbling, her future uncertain. But as she walked out of the park toward the glowing skyline, one thing was clear. She was finally, painfully, undeniably waking up. By the time Maren left Central Park, her fingers were numb from the cold and from the fear slowly wrapping around her ribs like wire. She headed toward a quiet corner cafe, needing a warm drink and a moment to breathe. She had just ordered a small latte when her phone started vibrating relentlessly. 6 missed calls. 14 new messages, all from unfamiliar numbers. Her heart sank. The first message she opened punched the air right out of her lungs. Heard the rumors. Sorry you're going through this. Rumors? Another notification popped up. A link. With shaking hands, Maren tapped it open. A gossip blog. Not one of the big ones, worse. A smaller, vicious account known for whisper campaigns in Manhattan's corporate circles. The headline made her knees buckle. Insider claims, VP Declan Hayes' wife having affair with prominent hotel CEO. Her picture, one from the stack of stalker photos, sat under the headline. Her vision blurred. Declan, Breyer. They leaked this. They were framing her. She scrolled further, pulse hammering. The article twisted everything Julian's flowers became secret gifts. Her meeting with the hotel manager became suspicious outings. And worst of all, the gossip page reported Declan as a devastated husband blindsided by his wife's alleged infidelity. Her throat burned. This was calculated, prepared, launched with surgical cruelty. The cafe noise faded into a dull roar as she read the comments. Poor guy. She doesn't look like someone he should have married anyway. Julian always looked like the type to steal someone's wife. If you put my one, hot humiliation flooded her face. But then another message. Not from Declan. Not from Julian. From a blocked number. Check your email, now. Her heart pounded as she pulled up her inbox. A new message sat at the top. Subject line simple. You should know what they really think of you. Inside was a single audio file. Hands shaking, she pressed play. Declan's voice. Cold. Arrogant. Maren won't fight back. She never does. Once the article hits, she'll be too embarrassed to leave the house. Breyer's laugh followed. Perfect. And once her reputation's trashed, she'll have no credibility to claim the designs. We can move forward without her in the way. Blood drained from Maren's face. Her breath fractured. They weren't just cheating. They were destroying her. Setting her up. Erasing her work. Erasing her. The cafe felt suddenly too small, too bright, too loud. She pushed out into the cold evening air, gasping. Declan thought she'd break quietly. He thought she'd disappear. But as she steadied herself against a street lamp, a fire sparked in her chest, small, trembling, but alive. A different message buzzed in her phone then. Julian, I saw the article. If you need backup, I'm here. Her tears dried hot on her cheeks. And for the first time, Maren realized she wasn't as alone as Declan wanted her to be. Maren didn't remember walking the 5 blocks to Julian's office, but somehow she found herself standing in the marble lobby of Crest development, clutching her phone like a lifeline. She must have looked devastated, because the receptionist didn't ask a single question. She simply called upstairs. Mr. Crest will see you now. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, Julian was already waiting. No suit jacket, sleeves slightly rolled up, expression sharper than she'd ever seen it. You saw the article, he said quietly. Maren nodded, and her voice cracked. They're trying to ruin me. I know, Julian gestured her inside. Come in. His corner office overlooked the Manhattan skyline, dusk spilling gold across the city. Normally, Maren would have admired it. Today, she felt small, battered, exhausted. He closed the door. Sit. Start wherever you need. Danistom. The moment she sat down, the dam inside her burst. She told him everything. The flowers, the lipstick, the photos, the blog post, the audio recording. Julian didn't interrupt. He listened with an intensity that felt grounding, not overwhelming. By the time she finished, her hands were trembling so hard she had to press them into her knees. Maren, he said finally, this isn't just personal betrayal. This is targeted character assassination. She nodded weakly. I know. And with thou. And he's doing it because you're a threat. Julian leaned forward. Maybe not to him as a husband, but to him professionally. You have something he doesn't. Talent. A choked, humorless laugh escaped her. I don't feel talented. Because you've spent years with someone who needed you to feel small so he could feel big. Her breath hitched. Julian opened a folder. Look at this. Inside was a printout of an internal memo from a hotel chain she'd pitched to last month. Her name appeared 3 times positively, enthusiastically, until one note at the bottom. Concerns raised by Declan Hayes about her professionalism. Suggest reviewing alternative designers. Marin pressed a hand to her mouth. He sabotaged me. Yes, Julian said. But you didn't lose because you weren't good enough. You lost because someone cheated. Her eyes filled again, not with despair this time, but with fury. Julian exhaled deeply. I want you to understand something important. A man like Declan doesn't destroy what he doesn't fear. He did all this because he knows you're better than him. Those words hit her like sunlight breaking through a storm. Slowly, cautiously, Marin straightened her shoulders. Julian noticed. A faint smile touched his mouth. There she is. Before she could respond, his desk phone rang sharply. He glanced at the caller ID and his expression shifted. It's your husband, Julian said. Marin's blood ran cold. Julian picked up. This is Crest. He listened, and his jaw tightened. He ended the call and looked at Marin. Declan isn't done, he said. Then, leaning forward, his voice low and grim. He's about to make his next move, and it's going to hit you hard. Julian's warning echoed in Marin's mind long after she left his office. Declan isn't done. Of course he wasn't. Men like Declan never stopped until they'd destroyed anything that made them feel insecure. And she, his quiet, agreeable, underestimated wife, had suddenly become a threat. By the time Marin reached the street, dusk had deepened into full night. Manhattan glowed with its usual brilliance, but she felt detached from everything floating, fragile, waiting for the next blow. It arrived faster than she expected. Her phone buzzed with an alert from her bank. Withdrawal? $8,200. Withdrawal. $5,400. Transfer. Dois prezicha. 0. Her heart seized. She opened her banking app, hands trembling. Her joint checking account, their account, was nearly empty. Almost $30,000 gone in minutes. Declan had drained it. A sharp, cold panic gripped her spine. She rushed to call the bank, but before she could dial, her screen lit up with a new text. From Declan. You should have come home when I asked. Actions have consequences. Marin staggered backward as though physically hit. Her money, her savings, the safety net she'd built from years of freelancing, extra shifts, stretching every dollar, gone, all gone. And then another hit. An email from her landlord. Due to recent concerns brought to our attention about your online conduct, we must temporarily suspend your access to the building's private studio spaces. We will review your contract pending investigation. Her breath caught in her throat. Her workspace. Her equipment. Her only source of income. Declan had called them. He was cutting off her livelihood piece by piece. She leaned against a cold building wall, struggling to breathe. The city rushed around her, uncaring, unstoppable. Her life was collapsing in real time, and she could do nothing but watch. Her phone rang. Julian. She answered, voice barely a whisper. He took everything. What do you mean? Julian demanded. He emptied the account, and he called my landlord. I can't access my studio anymore. Thanks for watching. There was a beat of silence, a sharp inhale on Julian's end. Then his voice hardened into something deadly calm. Marin, listen to me. You need to get somewhere safe tonight. Don't go back to the penthouse. Don't speak to him. Don't sign anything. Her knees buckled. I have nowhere to go. Yes, you do, Julian said firmly. I'll send a car. I'll take care of the logistics. You just get to the address I text you. She closed her eyes, biting back tears. I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything, he said. I'm doing what any decent human being would do. Before she could respond, her phone vibrated again, another message. This one from an unknown number. A photo. Declan and Briar. In her penthouse. In her kitchen. Clinking wine glasses. Captioned. Your replacement has officially moved in. End quote. The moment Marin saw the photo of Declan and Briar lounging inside her penthouse, her kitchen, her marble counters, her wine glasses, the world around her tilted. her breath stilled, her fingers went numb around the phone. For a second, she couldn't hear the traffic, the city, the evening wind. All she heard was a deep, crushing quiet. He hadn't waited. He hadn't hidden. He hadn't even hesitated. Declan had moved Briar into the home Maren had sacrificed so much to build. The home she decorated. The home she believed they were growing together in. Her chest tightened so painfully she pressed a hand against it, leaning into the nearest building wall just to stay upright. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was erasure. She didn't remember reaching the subway entrance, nor fumbling for her Metro card, nor descending into the dim station. But suddenly she was there, lost in a crowd of strangers who didn't know her life had just burned to the ground. She boarded the first train that arrived. She didn't care where it was going. She sat in the corner seat, hugging her coat around herself. Her reflection in the train window looked ghostly pale, exhausted, eyes swollen, hair sticking to her cheeks from cold tears. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Across from her, an older woman glanced up with concern. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" Maren nodded automatically, though her voice barely existed. "Just a long day." The woman gave a sympathetic smile. "Sometimes life breaks everything before it gives you anything." The words hit too close. When the train stopped at Midtown, Maren stumbled out, pulled by instinct more than intention. She wandered until she found a narrow, run-down hotel, one of those places tourists avoided and locals only entered when desperate. The neon sign flickered. The lobby smelled of old carpeting and cheap cleaner. It was all she could afford. She paid for one night with the last bit of cash in her wallet. Inside the tiny room, Maren finally collapsed onto the edge of the bed. She couldn't breathe without shaking. Her body folded in on itself, trembling uncontrollably. For the first time in years, she let herself cry without swallowing it down. She cried for her marriage. She cried for her stolen work. She cried for the woman she used to be before Declan chipped away at her piece by piece. When she finally stopped, her throat raw, her eyes burning, she whispered into the dark, "I can't go back." Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new message from Julian. "I sent the car. It's waiting whenever you're ready. You won't be alone in this." Maren closed her eyes. For the first time all day, she felt something faint but real. A sliver of strength. A beginning, hiding at the bottom of her fall. The rain had started sometime after midnight, tapping against the thin hotel window like impatient fingers. Maren sat on the edge of the creaking bed, staring at Julian's message over and over again. "The car is waiting whenever you're ready. You won't be alone in this." No one had said words like that to her in years. Declan certainly hadn't. He only said things like, "Don't embarrass me," or "You're overreacting," or "Be grateful I'm still here." If the day no. Maybe that was why her hands trembled now, because kindness felt foreign, unsafe, suspicious even. But she couldn't stay in this room another night. She couldn't go back to the penthouse, and she couldn't keep drowning alone. So, with a shaky breath, she stood. By the time she stepped outside, the rain had turned to a soft drizzle. A black Mercedes was parked at the curb. The driver stepped out immediately, holding an umbrella. "Miss Doyle?" he asked gently. She nodded. He opened the back door, and she slid inside. The leather seats were warm. A bottle of water waited in the cup holder. A folded blanket in the corner. Details she hadn't realized she needed until she saw them. As the car pulled away, she pressed her forehead against the cool window. Manhattan blurred by shimmering lights, damp sidewalks, neon signs reflecting in puddles. Once, this city had felt like a playground of possibilities. Tonight, it was a maze she barely recognized. The car stopped in front of a modern high-rise overlooking the river. The doorman greeted the driver and motioned Maren inside without hesitation, as if she belonged here. When the elevator opened on the 25th floor, Julian stood waiting. Not in a suit this time, not the CEO persona she had met in cafes and conference rooms, but in a fitted charcoal sweater, sleeves rolled, hair slightly tousled, human, grounded, present. "You made it," he said softly. Something in his tone relief, maybe unraveled her all over again. "I didn't know where else to go," she admitted. "You came to the right place." He led her into a spacious, minimalist apartment overlooking the river. Warm lighting, clean lines, quiet. A space designed to calm, not impress. "I had the guest room prepared," Julian said. "You can stay as long as you need. No pressure, no questions." Tears pricked at her eyes. "Why are you helping me?" He paused. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. The words hit deeper than she expected. Before she could respond, Julian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his brows narrowing. Declan filed something, he said. Emergency action. He's moving fast. Marin's stomach dropped. What did he file? Julian looked up, eyes steady, voice grave. He's trying to take your name off your own work permanently. Marin felt the words hit like a physical blow. Declan wasn't just sabotaging her career. He was trying to erase her name entirely. Julian placed his phone down, jaw clenched. He filed to have himself listed as the primary creator on your lighting designs. If it goes through, you could lose ownership and every future project tied to them. Her breath trembled. He can't do that. He's trying, Julian said. And he's using the scandal to claim you're unstable, unfit to manage business affairs. Marin's stomach twisted. She could practically hear Declan's voice, dismissive and icy. She's emotional. She's overwhelmed. She doesn't understand the business side. It was the same narrative he'd used for years whenever she questioned him, whenever she tried to protect her work, whenever she dared to take up space. Why? She whispered. Why go this far? Julian didn't hesitate. Because you left, because he lost control, because he knows your work has value and he can't let you succeed without him. His quote. Prediction on ride. A tremor ran through her. I can't let him win. Julian's expression softened. You won't. He slid another document across the table. This is the attorney I mentioned, Elena Marquez. She's the best in intellectual property and reputation defense. I've already briefed her. She's expecting you first thing tomorrow. Marin nodded slowly, her pulse steadying. For the first time, she felt something unfamiliar rising inside her resolve. Not loud, not dramatic, but solid, quiet and unmovable, like steel forming beneath shattered walls. Julian continued, Tonight you rest. Tomorrow you fight. She swallowed hard. Julian. Thank you. You don't owe me anything, he said. But Declan owes you everything. The truth of that hit deep. Hours later, after Julian retreated to his own room, Marin stood alone in the guest suite. It was warm, soft-lit, comfortable, nothing like the cold perfection of the penthouse. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was a mess, her eyes swollen, her clothes wrinkled. She looked breakable. But something in her gaze had changed. Declan had taken her dignity, her home, her savings, her reputation, and tried to take her identity. But he had given her something, too. A reason to fight. She wiped her cheeks, squared her shoulders, and whispered to her reflection, He stole my work. He won't steal my future. She turned off the light and slid into bed, exhaustion finally loosening its grip. Just as she closed her eyes, her phone buzzed once more. A new message. From Briar. Enjoy your last night with his name. Tomorrow, you won't have it. Marin stared at the screen, her heartbeat steady. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was ready. Morning came gray and heavy, the kind of Manhattan dawn that felt more like an accusation than a beginning. Marin stepped out of Julian's apartment wearing borrowed clothes, simple, clean, soft, feeling more human than she had in days. Her appointment with attorney Elena Marquez wasn't for another hour, but she needed to clear her head. She didn't get the chance. The moment she exited the building, a black SUV screeched to a stop in front of her. The window rolled down. Declan. His expression was a storm rage, fear, desperation. Get in the car. No, Marin said, stepping back. Now, Marin. His voice cracked with an edge she'd never heard before. Not anger, panic. She stayed still. I'm not going anywhere with you. Declan slammed the door open and stormed toward her. You think you can run off and hide with Crest? You think he's going to save you? I don't need him to save me, she said quietly. I just need you to stop destroying my life. He laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Destroying your life? You did that when you walked out. End quote. You moved Briar into our home, she snapped. You drained our accounts. You leaked lies about me. Declan's jaw clenched. I did what I had to do. Why? She demanded. Why go this far? Why take everything? Silence. Then, unexpectedly, he looked away, unable to meet her eyes. Because he knew she already had the truth. But Marin needed to hear it. To hurt me? She whispered. To control me? To punish me for leaving? No, Declan said, voice tightening. To protect myself. And Vils Tang, too. Marin frowned. From what? He swallowed hard. Too hard. From what you're about to find out? Another voice said behind him. Briar stepped out of the SUV, arms crossed, wearing one of Marin's old coats as if claiming the last pieces of her life. Declan, she said sharply, stop talking. But it was too late. He rubbed his temples. Marin? You weren't supposed to know about the financials. Her blood chilled. What financials? Briar shot him a glare sharp enough to cut steel. Get in the car, Declan. We'll handle her later. No, Marin said slowly, realization dawning like a knife slipping beneath skin. What did you do? Declan looked sick, haunted. You weren't supposed to see those documents Julian has. They can ruin me. So that was it. The lies, the smear campaign, the stolen work, the frantic aggression. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about fear. Declan was hiding something big, something illegal, enough to destroy him. Marin, he begged, if this goes public, I lose everything. She stared at him, stunned by how easily he admitted it. You already took everything from me, she said. Declan stepped closer, eyes wild. Then give me the documents, please. Before she could answer, Briar hissed, if she won't hand them over, take them. Marin took one step back, and the SUV door behind her swung open. Marin stumbled backward as the SUV door behind her swung wide open. A large man stepped out, security, maybe, or someone hired for intimidation. His stare was cold, expressionless, as if he'd been given clear instructions about what to do. Declan raised a trembling hand. Stop, don't touch her. But Briar stepped forward, heels clicking sharply on the wet pavement. She has documents that can ruin us. Do you want your entire career burned to ash because you're feeling sentimental? Marin's pulse roared in her ears. Declan, what documents? What did you do? He opened his mouth, but the words tangled in fear. Briar scoffed. Oh, please, like he's going to tell you. You think he built his position on hard work? Wake up, Marin. He used your projects, your name, your credit because he needed a clean face to get into Crest's circle. Marin staggered. What? Declan slammed a fist against the SUV door. Briar, shut up. But Briar was unraveling, too cocky to stay quiet, too angry to hold back. Why hide it? She already knows everything. The ghost accounts, the fake invoices, the transferred funds. That's why Julian Crest refused to work with you. He knew something was off. Modern Froze. Ghost accounts. Fake invoices. Transferred funds. Pieces began clicking together in her mind, each more horrifying than the last. You used my name, Marin whispered, to commit fraud. Declan sagged against the SUV, the truth finally too heavy to pretend otherwise. I didn't have a choice. The board expected results. I was drowning. You, your credit, your clean record, it was the only thing I had left. Her voice shook with disbelief. I trusted you. He dragged a hand through his hair. I thought I could fix everything before you ever found out. Briar rolled her eyes. And you would have, if she hadn't run to Crest like some wounded puppy. Marin stepped back from them both, nausea burning up her throat. I'm done. I'm going to the authorities. Today. Declan lunged toward her. Marin, wait. But before he could reach her, a black sedan pulled up sharply behind them. The back door opened. Julian. He strode toward them with lethal calm, coat catching the wind, eyes locked on Declan with an intensity that made even the security man falter. That's enough, Julian said. Declan stiffened. This is none of your business. It became my business, Julian replied. The second you used my company's name while committing financial fraud. T5 Han. Briar paled. You can't prove anything. Julian lifted a tablet. I already did. Declan's face drained of color. Marin swallowed hard. What did you find? Julian turned to her gently. Everything we need. Then he faced Declan again. And everything that will end you. The street went silent, and Marin finally understood. This was no longer just a broken marriage. This was war. The ride to Julian's office was silent but not empty. For the first time, Marin wasn't shrinking. She wasn't apologizing for existing. She sat upright in the black sedan, her hands steady, her breath controlled. Something in her had shifted, something Declan never expected, and Briar never thought possible. When the elevator doors opened, Elena Marquez was already waiting. Sharp gray suit, fierce eyes, posture of a woman who didn't lose. "You must be Marin," she said. "Come in. We have work to do." Inside the conference room, Julian placed the tablet on the table. Elena pulled up files, bank statements, falsified invoices, unauthorized transfers, all bearing one horrifying similarity. Declan had used Marin's signature, copied from her design contracts. Her stomach twisted, but she didn't crumble this time. Elena tapped the screen. "With this evidence, we can dismantle everything he's built. But the goal isn't revenge, it's protection. Your name, your work, your future." "I know," Marin said quietly, "but I won't let him take another piece of my life." "Thanks for watching." Julian exchanged a glance with Elena, impressed, maybe even proud. Over the next 2 hours, they drafted a strategy. File for immediate legal protection of her intellectual property. Freeze joint accounts pending investigation. Submit evidence of fraud to the board of Hayes Capital. Prepare for a public statement clearing her name. When they finished, Elena stood. "Tomorrow morning, the board meets at the Park Avenue office tower. You will attend." Marin blinked. "Me?" "Yes," Elena said. "Declan is expecting to control the narrative. We're going to shatter that expectation." Julian nodded. "You won't be alone. I'll be there. And the moment you present the documents, the board will know exactly who Declan is." A tremor ran through Marin, not fear, but adrenaline. "What about Briar?" Elena smirked. "Her involvement is documented too. She'll face consequences." Thanks for watching. It was the first time Marin truly allowed herself to imagine a world where she wasn't powerless, a world where Declan wasn't the center of everything, a world where she could rebuild. That night, back at Julian's apartment, a stylist someone Julian had called in quietly arrived with a simple wardrobe rack. "For tomorrow," Julian said, "wear something that reminds you who you are." Marin touched the soft fabric of a tailored black dress, strong, understated, elegant, a version of herself she had almost forgotten. In the mirror, she saw the woman she was becoming, not weak, not broken, not erased, a survivor sharpening into someone unstoppable. Just as she turned away, her phone buzzed with a final message, this one from an unknown sender. A single sentence. "Tomorrow he will fall harder than you think." The following morning, the Park Avenue tower gleamed under the rising sun, all steel and power, exactly the world Declan Hayes believed he ruled. Marin stepped out of the car, wearing the black tailored dress, hair pulled into a sleek, low twist, posture straight. She didn't look like a woman broken by betrayal. She looked like someone who had finally remembered her worth. Julian walked beside her, silent but steady, a presence that grounded her. Inside, the elevator ascended to the 42nd floor, where the Hayes Capital board meeting was already in session. Through the glass walls, Marin could see Declan pacing, voice raised, Briar glued to his side, whispering frantically. When Marin and Julian entered the conference room, every conversation stopped. Declan froze. Shock flickered across his face first, then dread, then anger. "What is she doing here?" he spat. Elena Marquez stepped forward calmly. "She's here as the rightful owner of the intellectual property you attempted to steal." Gasps rippled around the board table. Declan's face drained of color. "This is ridiculous. She's unstable. You've all seen the gossip articles." Julian cut in, his voice razor-sharp. "Articles you planted." A board member turned to Declan. "Is that true?" Declan laughed stiffly. "Of course not." Julian tapped the tablet, projecting audio onto the room speakers. Declan's voice filled the boardroom. "Once the article hits, she'll be too embarrassed to leave the house." Briar's laugh followed. "Perfect. Once her reputation's trashed, she'll have no credibility to claim the designs." The room erupted. Declan lunged for the tablet. "This is taken out of context." "Is this also out of context?" Elena asked, holding up printed bank statements showing the fraudulent transfers in Marin's name. Silence slammed into the room. One board member pushed back from the table. "Declan, this is criminal." Declan's voice shook. I can explain. I did it for the company." "No," Marin said quietly. Everyone turned. Her voice was steady, stronger than it had ever been. "You did it to protect yourself. You used me. You exploited my work. You tried to erase me." Declan's expression cracked anger, desperation, and finally fear. "Please, Marin," he whispered. "Don't do this. You'll ruin me." She inhaled slowly. "You ruined yourself." The board chair stood. "Declan Hayes, You are hereby suspended pending full investigation. Briar tried to slip out the side door. Elena blocked her path. Not so fast. You're complicit. Security entered. Declan shouted, reaching for Marin. Marin, please. She stepped back. He was escorted out. Briar followed, screaming his name, but Declan didn't look back. As the doors slammed shut, the room exhaled. Julian turned to Marin, eyes warm with something like pride. It's over, he said softly. But Marin knew. This wasn't just an ending. It was the start of her new life. The moment Declan was dragged out of the boardroom, a strange quiet settled inside Marin, an unfamiliar, liberating quiet. For the first time in years, she wasn't bracing for the next blow. She wasn't shrinking. She wasn't apologizing. She was standing in a room full of people who had just watched the truth unfold. And she had won. After the meeting, the board chair approached her. Miss Doyle, I'm deeply sorry for your experience. If you ever consider returning to design work with our company, our doors are open. Marin managed a small, steady smile. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. When she and Julian stepped into the hallway, the door closing gently behind them, she felt her breath ease. The weight she'd carried for years, Declan's expectations, his judgment, his manipulation, fell away like dust shaken from a heavy coat. Julian walked beside her, hands in his pockets, watching her quietly. How do you feel? Marin exhaled. Lighter. Good, he said softly. You deserve to feel that way. They exited the building into the crisp afternoon air. The city was bright, alive, humming with energy. For the first time, she felt like she belonged in it, not as someone's wife or someone's shadow, but as herself. Across the plaza, a cluster of reporters approached. Marin stiffened, but Julian gently touched her elbow. Do you want to speak to them? He asked. She thought for a moment. Then she shook her head. No. Let the evidence speak for itself. He nodded. Wise choice. They walked toward the waiting car, but halfway there, Marin stopped. I need one more thing, she said. Julian tilted his head. What's that? Marin reached into her bag and removed her wedding ring, a simple band she had once cherished. It felt cold, meaningless now. She walked to a nearby trash bin and, without ceremony, dropped it in. The sound it made, small, metallic, final, felt like closure. Julian watched her, admiration softening his features. You're stronger than you know. And I'm done being small, she replied. Good, he said quietly, because I have something to ask you. She turned to him, surprised. Crest Development is launching a new luxury hotel project, he said. I want you as lead lighting designer. Full creative control, full credit, full pay. Her breath caught. Julian, are you sure? He smiled. Absolutely. You earned this. It's not an... For a moment, emotions swelled in her chest. Gratitude, disbelief, hope. Then she nodded, a real smile forming. Yes, I'd love to. As they walked toward the riverfront, the sun dipped lower, reflecting golden light across the water. Marin inhaled deeply, letting the crisp air fill the new space inside her, a space free of fear, free of Declan, free of the past. Her life wasn't just restarting, it was finally hers. And for the first time, the future looked bright. All right, so the story has finally come to a close. And if you're still here with me, right now, reading these words, then something in Marin's journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or of a moment you thought you wouldn't survive but did. So let's take a breath together and look at what this story really tells us. In life, people can betray you, underestimate you, or even try to erase you. But as the Stoics remind us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Real strength begins there. Marcus Aurelius wrote that centuries ago, yet it still heals today. Because like Marin, you don't control what others do to you, but you control what you rise from. The truth is, you deserve respect. You deserve peace. You deserve to walk away from what breaks you. And above all, you deserve to see your own worth even when others try to dim it. If this story made you feel something, hope, courage, clarity, then don't keep that feeling to yourself. It might help someone else too. So, my wonderful friends, if you're still here, hit like, share this journey with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story that might just touch your heart the same way. You matter. Your story matters, and no one can take that from you.